John Cleese, right? John Cleese is one of the titans of old school comedy. Right. See if you actually watch like the original show that made all the Monty Python crew famous, Monty Python's Flying Circus, which was recorded years and years and years ago. Right. Trust me, like go and find the sketches. Go and everyone's heard of Life of Brian and the Holy Grail and all of those, which are fantastic films, and but those are the ones that are throughout the mainstream. But the original show that was called Monty Python's Flying Circus, right? Trust me, go and watch it. It is phenomenal. It's offensive as fuck at points, but there's also like old school boomer humor in there. But it's really cleverly written. It's really great. You should all go and watch it. And this, in my opinion, turned John Cleese into one of the titans of old school comedy. However, BBC Asia have tried to do him dirty. But before we get into the video, today's video is sponsored by Mech Arena. Mech Arena is a 5v5 competitive shooter that is not like anything else you can play on mobile today. There is no pay to win, so the games are fair and your success is based on only your own skill. The maps and mechs designs are varied and look really good, and it runs really smoothly on almost any device. With a huge choice of mechs, weapons and maps, you can tailor your experience to however you want to play and sharpen your skills in a truly balanced way. In Mech Arena there are plenty of free-to-play events and daily challenges that you can accomplish, and you will always start on an even playing field at the beginning of every game. Two of my favourite mechs are currently Killshot and Brickhouse. Killshot is an insanely fast glass cannon, and Brickhouse is exactly how his name sounds, sheer unstoppable power. Not only can you customise your mech loadout, you can also personalise the look and style of your mech to make it your very own. I enjoy optimising my mech's weapons so that I can get the most out of it in any mode. I really like Mech Arena because you don't need to worry about unfair games, so with the right mech, builds and practice, collecting salt in PvP, it's all honest work. Mech Arena just had the huge Mechs Are Here event where they raised $100,000 for charity, starting with a real-life Mech Arena battle on Santa Monica Pier in LA and finishing with the Mech Arena Championship where the winners will go on to pilot a real-life mech. There is a ton coming to the game this month. Pilots are coming on December 20th with 12 completely unique pilots to choose from and customise. There's also Battle Pass Season 2 and 3 and new 2v2 deathmatch maps to fight on. Overall, a packed schedule of holiday events. Mech Arena is completely free to download on Android and iOS right now, so use my link down in the description or scan the QR code on the screen to get 50,000 credits, 3 gold crates, and 1 exclusive mech heraldic to help kickstart your game. Now show them some support and click the link. Because for any of you that don't know, John Cleese has been extremely outspoken in regards to cancel culture and wokery and all that other stuff that is ruining pretty much every form of media. John Cleese blasts deception, dishonesty and tone of BBC Asia interview after he was grilled on cancel culture and Dave Chappelle instead of his upcoming shows. John Cleese was interviewed by a BBC Asia journalist about upcoming shows, but he claims instead he was asked questions about cancel culture. He says he replied courteously, but eventually ended the interview early. Star says he is now making a formal complaint to the BBC about the deception. BBC has defended the interview and says that it adhered to editorial guidelines. You know, it's, we've investigated ourselves and we've established that we've done nothing wrong. John Cleese has slammed the deception, dishonesty and tone of a recent interview with BBC Asia after he was asked questions about cancel culture instead of his upcoming tour. And obviously he's went on there to like promote the tour, but they've obviously tried to... Interviewers and journalists have done stuff like that to me as well, where they go, oh, yeah, we just want to talk about this. And then as soon as you sit down in the chair and they switch the cameras on, haha, now we're going to talk about what we really wanted to talk about. Yeah, they do that all the time. Don't do media interviews. Just don't talk to them. They are probably some of the most dishonest people that you will ever come across. Cleese82 claims that he was told he would be speaking to the journalist, who he identified only as Karishma, about his tour, Why There Is No Hope, which he is due to bring to Singapore and Bangkok. Instead, he claims he was hit with questions on cancel culture, Dave Chappelle, and says the interviewer tried to portray him as old-fashioned, uncaring, and basically harmful. Cleese cut short the interview and said he would be making a formal complaint to the BBC. The journalist's identity has not been confirmed. The BBC defended the interview, saying it adhered to editorial guidelines because Yes, unfortunately, it is not against editorial guidelines for journalists to outright lie to you and manipulate you into a completely different type of interview. Basically, if they trick you into an interview saying they want to talk about X and then spend the entire interview talking about Y and trying to get you to incriminate yourself or just flat out attacking you and telling you that you're a piece of shit, basically using false pretenses to bait you into an interview, that's not against the editorial guidelines. And like I said, uh, journalists are some of the most dishonest people you will ever come across. I'm skipping all of this because it goes through it again in the article. He recounted the interview in a Twitter thread, writing, "I just did an interview with BBC World Asia. It was to talk about the shows I'm doing in Singapore and Bangkok. Instead, the interviewer, whose name was, I think, Karishma, started asking me questions about cancel culture. I replied courteously and in full. I explained that if parents were overprotective, it did not prepare children well when they entered the real world, real and often not very nice world," which, yeah, that's absolutely correct. Basically, we are seeing an entire generation of that. We've seen an entire generation of people that have been coddled an awful lot by mummy and daddy. So when they go out into the big scary world, it's far too scary for them. And so they try and adopt a new mummy and daddy, in this case, the government, to do everything for them, even wipe their arse. But the government needs a lot more power and money to do that, and this generation are more than happy to hand it over. Yeah, basically, mollycoddling parents could possibly be what brings down the end of civilization and makes us walk into a fascist totalitarian nightmare. What I'm saying is, beat your children. No, I'm kidding on. Obviously, protect your kids, but don't mollycoddle them to the point where they have absolutely no understanding or, like, internal social and emotional skills to actually deal with bad stuff. She then asked a disjointed question, clearly trying to portray me as old-fashioned, uncaring, and basically harmful. I see nothing wrong with John Cleese's comedy, even all the way back in the day. I think he's fucking hilarious. Cleese said his responses had been totally ignored by the interviewer. Yeah, they do that. Whenever an interviewer asks you something hoping that you'll trip yourself up or give an answer that they can attack, see if you give a good answer that they have no ammunition for, they will just move straight on to the next question. That's another thing that they do all the time. If you give them something that they can't use against you, they're not interested. The only time they're interested in the answer to the question they've asked is if it's an answer that they can form into a club and beat you over the head with. If you don't give them that, they'll pretend it never happened and move on to the next question. Maybe they'll get lucky with the next question. I've came across interviewers like this. Oh god, I hate journalists. Who had then asked him about the ongoing pandemic and Dave Chappelle. Chappelle's Netflix special, The Closer, had sparked a backlash over his comments about the LGBT community. The show, which saw some Netflix employees walk out in protest, also sees the comedian tell the audience that gender is a fact. And yeah, we are all very, very, very aware of all the shit that happened with Dave Chappelle's stand-up special. I thought the one that he did just before The Closer was his best one. I loved that one. The Closer, he did feel a little bit timid in it, and I think he tried to extend the olive branch a bit too much towards people who are not interested in accepting the olive branch. So he's learned from that, obviously. It has been publicly backed by Cleese's Monty Python co-star Terry Gilliam, and basically, if there's a comedy show where you don't like the jokes, then don't watch it. Do not watch it. See if you say, oh, but it can cause people to think X, Y, and Z about trans people. Do you know what can really cause people to think X, Y, and Z about trans people? Their reactions to such things. I've realised that their reactions actually have a much bigger impact on the opinions that people form of them. I'm just saying. So it's because I know a shit ton of trans people who didn't really care. They actually found it funny. Unfortunately, they get lumped in with the fucking lunatics, which really isn't fair on them. But hey ho, that's how collectivism goes. Cleese continued, I removed my headphones saying that this was not the interview I had agreed to, which is absolutely fine. If it's not the interview he's agreed to, he's perfectly entitled to walk out. So I am formally complaining to the BBC about the deception, dishonesty and tone of this interview. Karishma had no interest in the discussion with me. She wanted only the role of prosecutor. The BBC needs to train her again. It's a fair point if you ask me. And there he is. Like, obviously, like the classic sketches and everybody does. I am not a racialist. And everyone, like, funny. Like he's taking the piss, and then obviously the absolutely iconic fucking don't mention the war, which I think probably one of the greatest scenes in British comedy history, because it's even to this day it's still funny. He added, the media will no doubt report that I stormed out. I didn't, nor did I lose my temper, but I was depressed that this kind of presenter ego crap is so prevalent now. The BBC hit back at Cleese's remarks with a spokesperson telling metro.co.uk this was a and appropriate interview which touched on topics that John Cleese has previously been vocal about, as well as themes within his new tour. Our presenter is an excellent and experienced journalist who conducted the interview entirely within our editorial guidelines, which they themselves set. Yeah, they make their own rules. That's handy, isn't it? Last month, the comedian blacklisted himself from the Cambridge Union Debating Society after a historian who impersonated Adolf Hitler during a society debate was banned. The comedian, who famously impersonated the Nazi dictator in a Monty Python sketch and again in Fawlty Towers, said he is blacklisting himself before someone else does. Now, I'm sorry, like, see if it gets to the point where you're not allowed to dress up and take the piss out of fucking Hitler, right? I'm sorry. I'm sorry, right? If you're not allowed to parody and mock Hitler, man, then we've truly fallen as a civilization. There was a comedian, and there was one thing I actually strongly considered doing it for a laugh. I completely forget the comedian's name, but he dressed up as Hitler, but in his bottom half he wore like sexy lingerie leggings and heels and stuff like that. And that get up is brilliant because it offends everyone. Right, and I was going to do it when I would be sitting at the desk, like dressed up in Nazi gear, and then I just sit my silky, smooth, sexy legs up on the desk. I thought about doing that, but I don't want to go online like googling Nazi uniforms and buying stuff like that. It would make my FBI agent very nervous. Mr. Bradwell later announced his comments came after Keir Bradwell, the student president of the 200-year-old Cambridge Union, emailed members to inform he was setting up a list of banned speakers. So that's absolutely fantastic. Obviously, a university where ideas are supposed to be discussed openly and freely for the purpose of education and to prepare people to have a greater expanded knowledge of the outside world and how it ticks. Of course, they should ban people from speaking at the university. Keir Bradwell, I see whenever you see that, emailed members to inform he was setting up a list of banned speakers. See whenever you read that, you know immediately what politics that person holds. Have you noticed that? I've noticed that. If someone says people should be banned from speaking, saying blah blah blah, this and that, 9 times out of 10, you will be able to immediately guess what side of the spectrum they're on. It's common as fuck, like I said, mollycoddle generation. He said, obviously announcing a U-turn. Mr. Bradwell later announced a U-turn to the idea because, yes, Mr. Bradwell, that is an authoritarian crap idea. Fucking know your station. Student union are basically the fingermen. Like, see in every single university I'm at now, like, literally no one likes the union, right? Because they're fully pompous arseholes, right? They're basically, remember the high school prefects that thought they were hot shit because they were told to, like, guard a corridor and be a hall monitor? That's what the student union are. Student union are glorified high school prefects. And, like, 9 out of 10 of them are complete fucking wankers. He said, obviously announcing a U-turn looks silly. I was just a 21-year-old who tried to make the situation better. No, that's not what you were doing. There is no policy to ban anyone for what they are going to say. It's a free speech institution. Now, what actually happened here to Mr. Bradwell is, a lot of people don't know this, but a legislation has been passed where universities are no longer allowed to do that. They're no longer allowed to ban speakers because universities which receive government funding are supposed to be a place to discuss ideas and knowledge. Therefore, if you ban speakers, then you are hampering their ability to do that and restricting not only the free speech of the speaker, but also the right of the people present to listen. You are controlling what information they can and cannot access, which is a rights violation. And basically, Bradwell has obviously been informed that what he was doing was breaking the law. So he's like, yes, it's a free speech institution, as he read from the script given to him by the university alumni. He also told the Daily Telegraph, "Is if there is dichotomy between free speech and defence, I would defend free speech. I don't want to create an impression that the union is against free speech. Well, it's a little bit too much for that. And I am familiar with, there are people that send me emails of some things that university student unions have done in regards to freedom of speech. And Cambridge University, oh, you guys are some of the worst. You guys are some of the fucking worst. Cleese has previously rallied against woke culture after seeing his own work cancelled. He hit out at the BBC earlier this year after they temporarily removed an episode of Faulty Towers from its UK TV streaming services for use of outdated language. Man, I can't believe a show made decades ago had outdated language. That's incredible. The row was over the famous Faulty Towers episode, The Germans, which first aired in 1975, which I don't care what anyone says. Fuck you, it's funny. Pardon me. In the episode, Cleese, playing his character Basil Fawlty, repeatedly offends a group of German guests with mentions of the Second World War, despite continually telling staff, "Don't mention the war." That's the famous "Don't mention the war" skit. At one point, Fawlty, who is suffering from the effects of concussion, goose steps in front of his guests while using his finger to make a Hitler moustache, which, again, is fucking hilarious. During the episode, right? Blah, blah, blah. You've all seen it. However, Cleese branded the channel stupid for not realising how realising the show was mocking the Major's use of the N-word, and added, "We are not supporting his views, we were making fun of them." Yes, because, well, context doesn't matter anymore. The Hitler impression referred to in his tweet, however, refers to his impression of the Nazi dictator in a sketch from Monty Python's Flying Circus. In the 1969 sketch, I keep forgetting how old Monty Python's Flying Circus is, Jesus Christ, the 60s. Cleese plays the fictitious Mr. Hitler, a National Socialist candidate in a by-election in Minehead, accompanied by Ron Ribbentrop, who is presumed to be Nazi Germany's foreign minister, Joachim von Ribbentrop, and Heinrich Himmler, presumed to be Heinrich Himmler. He plots to win the seat. The group set about attempting to convince the locals of their policies, including the annexation of Poland. During a speech on a balcony decked in the Nazi flag, he also advocates changing the town's name to Minehead. And all of it, of course, absolutely ridiculous and mental, which is why it's funny, because it's a fucking comedy sketch. Despite several glaring clues that he is actually Adolf Hitler, including Heinrich accidentally saying Hitler before correcting it to Hilter, the constituents seem oblivious to the candidate's real identity. It is never revealed in the sketch, written by Cleese and fellow Python Michael Palin, if Mr. Hilter wins the by-election. And contacted the BBC for comment. Now, again, I say this to absolutely everyone. If you're ever involved in anything and journalists approach you to talk to you, do not speak to them. Do not in any way. See, journalists work a lot like police in an interrogation room. You can say absolutely nothing that will save yourself, but you can say absolutely everything to damn yourself. Which is why, see, whenever you're in an interview room with police, and your lawyer is telling you shut the fuck up, do not speak to them, do not answer any questions, ignore them, and at least wait until I get there to conduct the interview. Do the exact same thing with journalists. Do not speak to them, do not approach them, do not answer their questions. Laugh in their faces and walk away. Right? However, it seems like John Cleese is obviously he's obviously been around the street before. Like he knows all this shit, but I think this one just sort of caught him off guard. Because that's the problem. As soon as you're right wing and against cancel culture and woke culture and this new wave of totalitarianism that is encroaching upon our freedoms and ability to make jokes and speak and discuss ideas, as soon as you're against that, you're immediately the bad guy. And journalists have this whole, well, everyone's the hero in their own story, aren't they? When in fact they are just serpents. But yeah, anyway, I've heard John Cleese is starting a new show. You know my email address, John. I'm just saying.